every child should play drums, not even from a musical standpoint, just so they have an outlet for that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm growing up and this is insane.
Right. Right on, Jesse. Well, so this podcast is all about you and your journey in music, and we'll talk about Tradewind, but I don't know if you feel comfortable, if you're cool about talking about Stick to Your Guns as well.
We'll talk about whatever you want to.
Because I'm sure that's a big part of your musical career and journey.
Definitely. Unintentionally, but definitely.
Right on. I did read, are you originally from Orange County?
I am, yes.
Cool. I'm from San Diego. So
awesome.
Not too far from you. I'm in Nashville now, but originally lived in San Diego for 95% of my life. So
cool. Yeah. My partner who does the record label with me, and maybe you can see behind me, but my partner who does the record label with me, and who I started Tradewind with, actually lives in Nashville as well. So
right on. Very cool. That's amazing. Do you take too many trips out of here? Or?
I definitely was. Not as much in the recent year, obviously, but
prior.
Exactly. But once it gets, once they say it's okay to travel more, I think I'll be making my way. Definitely.
Dope. Okay. Well, talk to me about growing up in Orange County.
Yeah. Orange County, especially for someone like me, is an incredibly easy place to grow up. I was born in Long Beach, and then I grew up in Costa Mesa. And then my mom wanted to go to South Orange County. So then we ended up moving to a little area called Rancho Santa Margarita. Which was very small. But so when we first moved there was no development. There was our pretty much our street, and that's it. And the rest was just these rolling hills. And when you're a kid and you meet other kids, it's like, it's paradise, right?
That's ideal, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're going through there, they're building up the model homes, and you're just basically going through the model homes, and the stairs aren't built yet, and you're fucking breaking everything you can, and you're riding your bike and making jumps and all sorts of stuff like that. So it was incredibly easy place to live. But and when you're younger, politics play so much into my life now, and it's something that has become very important to me the older I get, and it's become I've injected it into all of my music. And so Orange County, when you're young, you don't pay attention to any of that. All you're concerned with is everything that's happening literally right in your circle.
Sure.
But as you grow up, I became a little bit more and more disconnected from Orange County, as I felt, to me, in my personal experience, that it wasn't a place that was a very nurturing environment, especially for someone who wants to go out and experience the world for what it is. It seems to be a little bit of a bubble where people, in there, like I said, are only remained to be concerned with
what's going on in their bubble.
Exactly. Because there's the bubble of Orange County in general, and then it seems to me, at least in my experience, each family is their own bubble as well.
That's kind of how San Diego, I feel like, is as well. It's like you have certain neighborhoods that you could kind of pinpoint the bubble of, of people there.
Absolutely. And I'm not necessarily anti-bubble if your bubble includes your community and looking out for one another and making sure that everyone has the things that they need and pulling each other through hard times and all sorts of things like that. But you really, I think that it's sold on that idea, right? The idea of these suburbs and these communities, but you find out really quick how much people only care about me and mine when people's backs get up against the wall. And so, which I don't necessarily blame anyone, but I think that's it's an inherently problematic viewpoint to have. I think so.
No, I totally, I get it for sure. Okay, well then, how did you get into music? Like, what was the first instrument you learned?
I played trumpet growing up in school, and honestly, music was pretty much the only class when I was in, whether it be middle school or high school, was the only class I could pay attention to. It was the only one I really kind of gave a shit about. And my brother, I was lucky enough to have an older half sister who introduced me and my brother to bands like Sepultura and Slayer and Black Flag and Minor Threat from a really young age. So young to the point where I listened to it and I was like, this shit sucks. I'm like, I hate this. But as I got older, I recognized how profound a moment that was, that my older sister was showing me these things. And then same with my brother, he got into his own version of punk music. and that's all I really cared about from that moment forward. Everything else was kind of just a distraction from me wanting to go and pursue something that I was profoundly interested in. And so, that created, it's a whole own set of problems. I stopped going to school. I dropped out of high school. I did my
wow.
which that's tough for someone like my mom. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to hear the kind of music I'm listening to and hearing the kind of music I'm playing and have it be taken seriously by someone like my mother. You know what I mean? It's like,
right. They don't understand.
Exactly. Yeah. In the garage, all they're hearing is like, ah! And they're like, and I have to say to my mom in turn, trust me, it'll work out.
This is something that's going to happen. They're like, no, it's not. Like, trust me.
Which, at that point it's not that I didn't have faith that it wouldn't work out. That wasn't my concern, whether it was going to work out or not. All I was concerned with, like, kind of tying this back to when I was riding my bikes through the housing developments, I was only concerned with what was happening at that moment. I was concerned with playing music with these people, and the next step was, all right, we got these shitty songs. Now let's go play a show. You know what I mean? It's like, I apologize for the language as well. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're allowed to cuss and say whatever you want, man. This is, like I said, this is all about you. Nobody cares what I'm saying.
So yeah, that was kind of the jumping off point for my, musical career, if you want to call it that. But
okay. Well, with the trumpet, what were you, like, in 5th grade? Like one of those, like, select the clarinet, flute, like the 7 instruments to let you choose from?
Right. And I went with trumpet, I think only because I had other friends who went with trumpet.
And then did you continue with trumpet? Like, did you play it in middle school or anything, or high school?
So I did. I played it in middle school, and I was actually pretty good. I got first chair, but then there's, I don't know if people know, there's a ranking system, but like, yeah. So it's like I was in the first chair multiple times, but because of behavior, I would get knocked down.
They're like, you're great, but you can't pay attention or whatever. You don't want to listen. Yeah. You don't want to listen to the rules. Okay. Well, so, when did you stop playing trumpet? You said after middle school?
Yeah. So simultaneously, my brother started taking the guitar very seriously, and he was taking guitar lessons outside of school. And so I was, being the younger brother, I was like, anything the older brother does, that's what I'm doing.
You want to do, right?
So I was like, all right, guitar lessons. And then my brother's like, my God, like, you already wear the same clothes as me, the same shoes as me. We have the same skateboard, like, we have all the same stuff. So he was like, why don't you learn how to play drums so we can play together, right?
Oh, okay.
And so that's what I did. I was like, okay, cool. Like, aye, captain, like, whatever my brother said goes. So I learned drums, and then I became very interested in drums. So drums was actually pretty much like the first instrument I really took, like, really seriously.
Okay.
And then once I realized I had this short-lived passion for drums, I moved from trumpet in school. I moved from trumpet to percussion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because that it seemed to make more sense, even to my music teacher. Like, yeah, you banging shit probably, like, you hitting something with a stick makes more sense to me.
Right.
I was such a little caveman. So
of course, that's how I have a 5-year-old son, and I got him during this COVID thing. We bought him an electric drum kit because I'm like, yes, dude, you need something to, like, get this energy out, and
absolutely, I
can't listen to the smashing all day, so the like of the
headphones on him, and
he just goes nuts, and I'm like, okay, this is. We need to get him lessons now, but
absolutely, every child should play drums, not even from a musical standpoint, just so they have an outlet for that. Yeah. Like, I'm growing up and this is insane.
Right. So how long did you play drums for? Did you join it, or did you ever start that band with your brother?
So I did, actually. I basically, drummers I feel like generally are in short supply, because when you're in a band, at least back then, in my, like, we didn't have, this was before internet and being like, hey, who needs a drummer, and all that kind of shit. So because most people want to either play guitar or they want to be a singer, up in the front. It takes a special kind of person to be like, okay, I'll be the drummer, sit in the back that no one wants to talk to, and I'm
going to carry all this gear. Not only that.
No, absolutely.
I got to buy a truck now because I want to be the drummer.
It really does control your life in a way that you have no idea when you're first getting into it. So yeah, I played for a lot of different bands, but me and my brother did play in a band together, and it went great. And I even, when I played in a few bands leading up to Stick to Your Guns. And when I started Stick to Your Guns, my brother had gotten into recording. So he had like Pro Tools and all sorts of stuff like that, which was another massive, like door to have immediate access to someone who can record you. Right. Because when you're starting a band, I mean, now it's a little bit easier, I would say, a little bit easier. It's still tough being in a band nowadays, but back then it was just like, you needed to save up money and go find some guy. And the guy generally, for what you could afford, wasn't very good, or still learning, or whatever it may be. So to just have my brother there, like, oh, I got this idea, everything's already mic'd up, let's go. Like that was huge.
Sure.
And so I recorded the Stick to Your Guns demo, and I literally played everything. I played the drums, I played the guitars, I played the bass.
Really?
And I didn't sing on it at first because I had no intention of, but I had no intention of being, I didn't want to be a front person. I didn't want to be the person who's like, all right, like side to side or whatever, stupid hardcore singers do. That was not that's not anything I was interested in.
Interesting.
Yeah. So then I was going to play the drums, and then we started finding people, and I was trying to piece together this band, and I found a bass player. It was my friend Noah, who I'm still friends with to this day. We've been friends for like 25 years. And then I found another guitar player, and then I found a drummer. So I was like, okay, you know what? And the drummer was really good. So I was like, okay, this person will be the drummer and I'll play guitar. So then now we had the musical section.
Okay.
And then we needed to find a singer, and then we ended up getting a show, but we didn't have a singer yet. And then someone was like, yo, just sing for this show. Just you sing. We don't need two guitar players. It's like caveman music. It's nothing, you know what I mean? It's not technical. So we'll have the bass player, we'll have the drummer, we'll have the guitar player, and then you sing. And so I was like, all right, whatever.
Did you have real quick on the demo that you recorded everything, did you have vocals on it, or is it all just music?
That great question. So it was still leading up to the show, we had no singer on the demo. We just had this thing that, it was just music. So once we had kind of decided, like, all right, Jesse, you're going to sing, I put vocals over the demo, and we printed them up really quick so that we had something to hand out at the actual show.
Got it.
And I think there was, if my memory serves me correct, like even on the demo, it was like, the guitar player, Jesse, is singing, still looking for a singer. You know what I mean? Like in my head, I was still like, I'm the guitar player.
That's amazing. I wonder how many people actually have that. And do you have that?
I don't know. It might be somewhere. It for sure exists. My brother might have it.
That's cool.
He for sure has the files. I don't know if he has the actual like physical copies that you're burning CD by CD and those towers that they had. But
yeah, they give you like 500 CDs in this tower with no case.
Exactly. You're just handing them out, and like it takes you all day to burn 30 CDs or whatever.
Sure.
But so yeah, that's what happened. And then one thing led to another, and I kind of just stayed the singer of Stick to Your Guns. And then there was even one more moment where I was having really bad problem. Like we were well into Stick to Your Guns at this point, maybe 2 years. We were doing little tours up California and whatnot. And I was like spitting up blood. Like I didn't know what I was doing, like, so I got to a point where like, all right, I can't continue singing. We need to find another singer. We found another singer. I went back to guitar. I was like, finally, I'm done with this. I didn't want to do it.
Really?
And then it just, big dramatic story, didn't end up working out with him. And then everyone's like, bro, like this is a sign. You're the singer of Stick to Your Guns. Stop trying to fight it. And I was like, oh.
So you were writing the lyrics and the melodies for the song anyway, right? I mean,
yeah, pretty much.
And you were just giving it to the person to.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was still writing everything, but I was singing still. And then once this new guy came in, there was conversation of like, I was kind of like, hey, I'm really used to writing a lot of the music, and really used to writing a lot of the lyrical content and like the vocal patterns and shit like that. So I still want to be involved with that process. And the singer was like, oh yeah, cool, no problem. You can do that still. So yeah, and we didn't even end up playing a single show. Like it didn't even get to that point.
Oh, you know what I mean? This guy was only in it like behind the scenes for a bit.
Yeah, for like 6 months, I was still playing shows and doing stuff while we were getting ready to do this next record that was going to like introduce the new singer.
So did you have the first EP out? Or in the first record out at this point, or no?
So yeah, we had the first record with me singing on it, and then
Compassion or Without Compromise. That
so
one?
that's the EP. So that's the there's even a demo before that, but
Yeah. So the demo before that, and then you recorded
the EP
with you and without the singer, without looking for a singer yet, or
so
always.
This is even the first LP, for what it's worth, I was still singing.
Sure.
In between the first LP and the second LP, which was Comes From the Heart, that's when this guy was supposed to sing. Like Comes From the Heart was going to be his record that it was like, all right, here's the real Stick to Your Guns with this new guy. So I had already done no. So I had already done a full LP with me, an EP with me, and a demo with me. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
my head being like, I'm not the singer,
but I already have. Yeah. And at that point, did you sign to a label at that point?
Yeah, we were already with a label and everything. Like,
okay. So can we go back to that era real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first LP was on this label called This City Is Burning.
Okay.
Which was this kid named Josh, who was like, he had an ear. He just knew what was going to kind of pop and what wasn't. And so he signed at that time all these bands that ended up going on and doing pretty amazingly, pretty big things. At least, big for what our world was at that time.
Right.
It's much bigger of a world. It's much of a bigger world now. Like the fact that this kind of music is going into House of Blueses and things like that. Like that was never even that was like the equivalent of us being like, oh, you're going to play the Honda Center. You know what I mean?
Right,
like,
right. Yeah.
No, we're not,
So. No, we're not.
we play VFW halls and maybe sometimes a bar, but like that's, you know what I mean? Like that's it.
Well, I mean, growing up I think I'm a couple of years older than you, but I grew up with the same music and wanting to see these bands. So it would always be, like a teen center.
Exactly.
Or like
you bowl up and like,
the Che Cafe and like,
Che Cafe. That was a spot. I love going to shows there. But yeah, then Sumerian Records, at the very beginning of Sumerian, we were one of the first bands, I think, along with, the Faceless, I think.
Oh, wow.
So us and the Faceless, I think, were pretty much like the two first bands of Sumerian. And Sumerian pretty much bought our first LP from Josh at This City's Burning and like bought our contract from them. And then, we went on to do Sumerian for a while after that.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry. You got
Century
LP,
Media, right?
Yeah. Second LP, we went to Century Media. And then we ended up going back. We circled back to Sumerian.
Okay. Well, tell me about like getting that deal. I mean, Century Media is a big label.
Yeah, they were at that time. Like we had no intention of signing with Century Media. We were talking with two labels at the time, one being Ferret Records, which we were like, all of our favorite bands are on Ferret.
Yeah, I was going to say that's such a dope label.
Yeah. And so we were so stoked. And then we took a meeting with Century Media just being like, oh, let's go snag this free lunch. Because at this time, I was maybe 17 or 18 years old. I was a child still. So like
that's crazy.
And I had no place to live. I had been kicked out of my house. I wasn't going, I wasn't in high school anymore because I dropped out from when I was like 16 or something. Like I was just like full blown, like wild child on my own. And so, and now we're getting taken seriously by these labels. And I was just like, let's go grab this free lunch and just talk to these guys and, maybe grab some free, like, records or whatever.
T-shirts.
But in no way are we going to entertain this.
Okay. And was there a reason behind that, or it was just because we were
so stoked on Ferret, that like we just felt like that's where we belong. Because Century Media, especially at that time, was very much a metal label, and to us, we weren't a metal band. Okay. And Ferret was like had all these like metalcore and hardcore bands, and we were just like, that's where we belong. So basically Century Media ended up just offering us a way better deal, and the guys were really great, and so we ended up signing with them. But they kind of fell apart there after. I don't really know what happened. All I know is that we got out of that contract, which we kind of needed to, and then we ended up circling back to Sumerian.
Okay. With like we're like off that first record, like the first LP, you guys must have been doing some pretty significant touring to even attract the attention of
Sumerian.
Sumerian, even Century Media, or even the City Is Burning records. Like how did you meet the guy that started that label?
Yeah, it was really interesting. Like I was looking at photos of one of our first shows we ever played, and there was like 200 people there. And that's not like, I mean, here's the thing is I wasn't just some kid who came out of nowhere. People knew me from being I was maybe in 3 or 4 bands prior to that. You know what I mean? So I think that aspect really helped Stick to Your Guns, that I was actually a member of this community. And it was like, oh shit, the drummer from all these bands that we really liked is now singing in this band. So let's go check that shit out. And we just had a bunch of friends who were just like rambunctious, like kids who would just be like, from the first moment we started feeding back, like they were just beating the shit out of each other. So it looked like holy shit, like this band is like, this is going to happen, just because we had this really awesome community of people who were just like whooping ass during our set. So
okay. Well, what would you say, like the next, like after you signed with Century Media, what did they do for you? Did they put you on like a bigger tour? Like, did they even know what to do with you? Like, I'm curious on how they, aside from putting the record out, what did they do to help support the band?
Well, I mean, that's hard to say. I mean, I remember getting into a lot of trouble because at the time, Ash Avildsen, who was the owner of Sumerian Records, he was also doing this booking company, and he was our agent. And so he was really helping us get on a lot of these bigger shows and bigger tours. And I remember the first time we played the Los Angeles House of Blues, when it was still over there on Sunset or whatever.
Yeah.
We played there, and it was like one of our first times playing in front of like the entire Century Media staff. And straight up, like we had not been in a good standing with Century Media at that point. And I told the entire crowd, don't buy our record, just go pirate it. And that really pissed them off.
No, you think?
And so from that point on, that was kind of when like that was like the first call for war between Stick to Your Guns and Century Media.
Okay.
Which at that point, I think that they thought we were really going to perform in a way that we didn't. Like I think that because we had so much buzz from that first record that they thought like, oh, we're going to put this band out and it's going to really explode.
Sure.
And we took a step up, but we didn't like blow up. So I think we were pretty underwhelming, I think, to them for what they had thought we were going to do. And so I think that when the split did happen between us and them, it was pretty amicable, because I was, like I said, I was still fairly angsty. So I was tough to work with, and like, we just weren't performing very well in their eyes. And so I think it was a pretty even split. And I signed a bunch of shit then that really fucked me too. I was an 18-year-old kid, and they're offering us like publishing deals and shit like that, which I didn't know what the fuck that was. And they're like, hey man, sign this publishing deal and we'll give you $10,000. And I was like,
right.
And my 17-year-old brain, I was like, or 18, I was just freshly turned 18. In my 18-year-old brain, I was like, oh, $10,000. I never have to work again. That's the most amount of money I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And so idiot signed it, and it ended up being a very, very shitty deal that I'm no longer in, thank God. But yeah, it was just, there was that whole beginning period of Stick to Your Guns was a very messy learning experience. Yeah.
No, I mean, that's kind of how it is for a lot of bands, right? I mean, if you have nobody that knows, that's going to be like kind of walk you through it or hold your hand through it.
Well, there's a lot of shit too. I mean, to this day, where everyone, like, you go and sign with a label, and the label's like, all right, this is your lawyer. And you're like, oh, great, this is my lawyer. And little do I know, I'm sitting across the table from, they're all on the same team, but they're making it seem like, no, they're on my team.
This guy's going to support you and help you, deal with us. But it's like, but we're paying the guy to go.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's all fucked. And everyone knows, any industry can be tough, especially in an industry that doesn't have like major unions that are controlling it, that are like worker powered. So it's a pretty predatory space, and so that's really shaped me and my current mindset towards music now, because a lot of people, especially when they listen to a band like Tradewind, they think like, oh, you guys should be so much bigger. And I'm just like, I really have no interest in that, because I see all these artists who are massive and getting millions upon millions upon millions of streams, and most of them don't have a pot to piss in, right? And most of them can't sell a single fucking ticket to save their life. And so that's
what's interesting to me.
Yeah, totally. And that's the way it's structured, is these stream scraping playlist shit, or these stream farms that they have in other places that, you know, that people are constantly getting in trouble for. And I really have no interest in that. I would rather have like genuine streams from people who are listening to us and supporting us. If our record gets 1 million streams or 2 million streams over a 5-year period, like I would rather have that, because I know those streams are real, and those are people who are genuinely going, I want to listen to Tradewind and play that. And these are people who buy merch from us, and they buy records from us, and they come see us when we play. And, you know, I would gladly rather play to 150 people in a small club for the rest of my life, instead of, you know, trying to
have
get
2 songs
robbed.
on playlists.
Exactly. You know, and that's just kind of where I'm at now. And I'm super grateful for the opportunities I have, and for the community I have, that a lot of my bands have built around them, because to me, that's way more worthwhile. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you've worked your ass off for, you know, number of years, like at least 15, 16 years at this point.
No, exactly. And that's exactly right. And that's what's important. And I do want to say another thing. I'm not saying that any person who has this dream of becoming this famous star is inherently wrong or evil. I think that's what we're sold. Like, I think that almost every artist in the industry today is working their fucking ass off, but you have to make the decision. Are you going to gamble your worth to try to get this intangible thing that you're being sold, or do you try to build your own community that maybe you're going to have less streams, and maybe you're going to like, maybe the ceiling for you won't be as big as playing the Staples Center or whatever your dream may be, but you can truly build a career in music off of this way as opposed to this way,
right?
And I feel like I'm living proof of that, because I don't necessarily think I'm any harder working than any artist that I know. I don't think I'm any more talented than any artist that I know. I just think that I recalibrated what the music industry is, and I was able to see it for what it is, because everyone knows how like inherently like predatory it is, but they just go like, well, what are you going to do? And I just decided, oh, I'm going to do it my way. That's what I'm going to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
I refuse to believe that there's not a market for my kind of music. And you just have to yourself put in the work to find where that is.
Well, I think it's interesting what you said about the streams, because there are like artists, I mean, that like, that'll get a playlist, or that'll get, you know, a TikTok song. I mean, it's hard to say now because there really isn't shows, but like artists that will get like a couple, or like a smash on TikTok that gets, you know, 12 million streams on Spotify. Like, are they going to be able to sell a ticket in Orange County? Like, are they going to be able to sell what their stream, like their numbers on Spotify might say that they have, you know, 5,000 monthly listeners, but are those people going to show up?
Right, exactly. Are those listeners just people who happen to go through a playlist, or is that an actual fan of your music? And that's important thing to recognize. Now, I'm not anti-playlist really by any means.
Right.
I mean, I have my own little thoughts about people who need to who need to be told or have their music taste curated for them. I have my own thoughts on that, but like, I think playlists can be helpful to an artist, but you know, when you're trying to sell your music, you need to have a multi-pronged, you know, you need to diversify, because a lot of people go like, I just need to get playlisted. And once I get playlisted, then it's just smooth sailing. It's like, no, like I you know, Tradewind has been on these last couple singles, Tradewind has been playlisted, and we're grateful for it, because now hopefully 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, however many people will see those, maybe hear those songs and go, oh damn, what is this? And you know, be brought over to the Tradewind team or whatever. But, you know, there's other things that need to be done. And so, you know, cultivating a fan base is one of those things. For example, there's a hip hop group called Suicide Boys. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're from New Orleans, and they've had some insane success. And they've been playlists, and they get millions of listens on their Spotify and other streaming platforms, but they've also cultivated an actual community. And what they did, or at least from what I heard, is that there was a tour that they had planned that was around their top 10 cities that they had on Spotify. And for artists like them, for a group like that works, because they built something that is actually tangible. Now, I don't even think I could necessarily do that. I mean, maybe I could at this point now, because I've been doing it for so long. And
yeah, I was gonna say I've probably could. So
but you know, for new artists, like let's say you have a record where half your record gets playlisted, and you go and look at what your top 10 cities are. It's unless you've built something around there, unless you've built something tangible.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have a tough time. But those tough times are good. You go and play those shows to nobody, because you know an artist can really get inflated, especially when you have a bunch of people around you saying you're the best, you're the greatest, you're a gift from God, you're caught from the cloth of the angels. Like, you know, you can only get taught that. You said that to you so many times before you start believing, like, yeah, I'm the shit. And so playing those shows to nobody is great for the ego, because the ego constantly needs to be punched in the face. Constantly. Every day I try to punch my ego in the face and just go, look, you're not special. Shut up. You know, like there was a lot of factors, and there was a lot of things that I was able to have from a young age where I was able to pursue music. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We didn't have the anxiety that a lot of other people, the anxieties and insecurities that a lot of other people have in the world, such as, you know, how am I going to eat next? Or how, you know, how am I going to pay the rent? Or how am I going to, whatever the fuck. I mean, after 2008, my family definitely went through that, because we were the suckers that were sold the bad loans and got our houses taken away from us and all that kind of shit.
Yikes. So
so that had its own set of problems. But growing up, at least, I was able to pursue, you know, the whole, like, you can be anything you want to be, you know, like that. I had that. I was afforded that luxury. And there's a lot of kids who aren't. There's a lot of kids where it's like, look, you're going to have to contribute to the family, because we need all hands on deck. Otherwise we can't keep this roof over our heads.
Right.
So, you know, and that to me is mind blowing, because it's like, man, imagine the Mozarts who are out there. Imagine these absolutely ridiculously, these child prodigies that exist, but can't pursue it simply because of the insecurities that millions of Americans are faced with. It's I can't think about it too long. It fucks me up a little bit too much, but it's something to recognize. And it's something that I think that we all, lovers of music, need to be really considerate of, because, you know, hopefully we're all trying to build a new society that can include people like that. At least that's what my hope is for the world. But yeah, it's a crazy thing to think about.
Yeah. Well, back on your point of with playing, you know, the top 10 cities on your Spotify. I mean, I'm sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, like, you guys built a fan base because you hit these cities multiple times on tour. I mean, if you did a tour of the States and you go back to whatever, Erie, Pennsylvania 15 times, I'm sure each time you play that place, more and more people are going to show up.
Definitely. I think Stick to Your Guns kind of got into a little bit of trouble, being as how we played those places too many times. Like,
really?
we were the kind of band who it's like, all right, 250 to 300 shows a year. Let's just go. Like, we just going to keep moving. And I think it got to a point there for a little while where it was like, oh, Stick to Your Guns is playing Chicago. They're going to play 6 times this year, so I'll catch them next time. And so that was also a learning thing. Like, oh shit, okay, scarcity. I hate using like market terms, but like, you know, not making yourself as available to people can actually help you.
Well, it makes sense, because like you just said, why would if somebody went to your show that time, you know, and then they see you're coming back in, you know, a month and a half or whatever, 2 months from now, they might not go because they're like, oh, well, I just saw them play that record, or I just saw them on that tour.
So there are strategic things that you have to keep in mind. Just like the point you said was spot on. Like there's things you have to keep in mind when doing things like that. And you have to, you know, you got to be strategic, and you have to know what your fan base is, and you have to know, like, you know, there's certain things you have to play into. Artistically, I mean, in my opinion, you should always do what is resonating within you. When you start writing music based on those same factors, then you kind of get yourself into a little bit of hot water, I think. And that's when you start writing records that are bad. But if you can keep those things separate, like you can know your fan base, and you can be strategic in how you tour or how you roll out your record or things like that. But you know, you got to keep the artistic side from the strategic side, business side of the music separate, I think.
Sure. No, I completely agree with that. If you start writing for people to try to get them to
Exactly.
jump that way, then you're not, doing what probably is true to you, and people are
Exactly.
going to hear that.
And I use this example all the time because Metallica is a band I love. But now, in their recent records, they seem like a band who goes into the studio and asks themselves, okay, what would Metallica do? It's like, motherfuckers, you are Metallica. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
stop doing that. And I know a lot of bands who start doing that. And now, really, I don't want to blame them, because it's like when you put out 10, 12, 15 records, it's like you start going like, God damn, this again? We're back in the studio? Why are we doing this still? But I would rather Metallica put out a fucking record that sounded like Coldplay, so long as it was something that resonated and came from a genuine place.
Right.
And again,
I feel like Green Day kind of does that, where
right.
Like they'll just go in and do whatever the hell Green Day wants to do. And if you don't like it, then they don't care.
Exactly. And I feel like that's a good, to me, that's a good thing to do. At least from an artistic standpoint. Like, I'd rather everyone go like, what the fuck are these? I mean, and I honestly kind of get that sometimes when you listen to a band like Stick to Your Guns versus Tradewind, people are like,
yeah, total different.
How does this connect? But it's, I grew up with so much music around me, and life is still this thing that excites me. And so I like to try a bunch of different things. I don't want to do, my guitar player, Stick to Your Guns, Chris, always jokes and says that I'm the jack of all trades, master of none.
Oh, sure.
And I'm okay with that, because life is too exciting to only do one thing or try one thing. And so I'm always around, because I still have that youthful energy where I'm just like, what's this? What's that? What's going on? I want to try. I want to try to put my hands on as many things as I can. So
right. Well, okay. So you guys did 3 records with Sumerian. Tell me about, like, I'm just curious, like, what would you say, like, the milestone moment of like Diamond would be for you guys?
Yeah, Diamond was a record. I think that, so the record previous to that, the Hope Division, is when we brought in Chris, who played in a band called Walls of Jericho. And Walls of Jericho was a band that I grew up. I loved Walls of Jericho. So the fact that, like, you know what I mean? It's like it was almost like we were this rookie baseball team. And then all of a sudden, like, Barry Bonds was like, I'm going to join your team. I was like, holy shit. Like, I couldn't believe it. So Chris and me and Chris pretty much wrote every single song on the Hope Division and Diamond together. But so Hope Division was kind of the, like, this is the new Stick to Your Guns. And then Diamond was the one where we really put our flag in, like, this is it. You know what I mean? And at first, when we released Hope Division, it was very poorly received.
Really?
By, at least by critics, by, like, because at that point, AP magazine and like all these magazines were really still held a lot of, like, weight, as opposed to
sure. I mean, if all press said this is the next big band, I mean, people listened.
Exactly. Especially then. And so it was very much like, yeah, this is cool, but whatever. And then we released Diamond, and because we had toured so much on Hope Division, we had gained a lot of, like, fandom over that record. And so when we released Diamond, all those same critics were like, this record's fine, but it's not the Hope Division. And I was like, motherfucker, you were the ones who were saying Hope Division was, like, lukewarm or whatever. And now we're like, that record's amazing. And so again, Diamond was the same thing. At first it was very, like, received meh. But we toured on it so much, it became like that record pretty much became like, that's when Stick to Your Guns arrived. That Diamond was a very big, after the fact. We released it and then toured on it for 2 or 3 years. By the time we were getting ready to go into the studio to do, I think Disobedient.
Yeah.
Diamond was like, okay, Stick to Your Guns is the band. So it took, like, from Diamond, pretty much from the demo point we were talking about up to Diamond, was very much, it was all an experiment. Like, what works, what doesn't, who am I, what do I have to say? Because I something that people need to take into account at that time as well is I'm literally going from being a teenager from when the demo's written to being in my, early to mid 20s by the time Diamond is coming out. Those are prime years of figuring out who am I? What do I believe? What kind of person do I want to be? What am I interested in? Like, so I'm trying to navigate that, like, who the fuck? Oh my God. While also trying to say something like profound through my music. It's this weird kind of like juxtaposition of like trying to figure out who I am. And so you're pretty much watching me grow up
right,
in real time through those records, which is an interesting thing. And by the time Disobedient hits, I'm like, okay, this is the person that I think I am. And I'm sure there's room for adjusting here and there, but like,
right,
this is who I am, and this is how I want the world to see me, and this is the things that I want to remain like steadfast on.
okay.
So yeah.
And were you seeing the shows? Like, I mean, when you, like you said, Diamond was kind of when you stuck the flag in the ground and said, this is like what our sound is. When you got to Disobedient, were you playing bigger tours? Like, was the fan base constantly, growing for you guys?
So Disobedient really put a lot of eyes on us because that record was done with John Feldmann. And I think a lot of people were like, this is going to be interesting. Because Stick to Your Guns, we're not like a purist hardcore band. We're like one of those fringe bands, right? So we kind of pride ourselves on being the band that holds the door open from like scene kids or like metalcore kids and showing them the way to pure hardcore music. So a lot of people were like, this is going to be interesting. Like this dude, like a guy like John Feldmann working with a band like Stick to Your Guns, this is going to be super interesting. So a lot of people were kind of excited for it. And then when we finally released it, our lead track was the song Nobody. And it kind of like, people were like, yeah. And so from that moment on, like we went from being like the band going to Europe, playing to like 150 kids to playing to 600, 1,200. And then our last show we played before COVID was in Cologne and in Leipzig. We did 2 shows and those were 3,500 people each.
Wow. That's amazing.
So it really, Disobedient was the one that really did it to like, I guess, break us into something more than just this small club band. Now in the US, we're still a small club band. We have our areas.
Really? I think everybody knows the name Stick to Your Gun. I feel like in the scene, like people know who you are. And I think, you've definitely built
I think there's certain places like Chicago, New York, LA, like the main hot spots, we can probably play 800 to 1,000 people. But everywhere else we're 300 to 500 people, which to me, like those are the shows where people getting on stage and doing getting crazy. So it's like, even though the turnouts might not be as big, the energy is still there, and that's ultimately what's important to me.
How did you guys get to work with John Feldmann? Was he somebody that approached you, or?
So yeah, he was like, I think that like we were talking with a few people and we knew that we had to do something different because the last 2 records, Diamond and the Hope Division, were with the Blasting Room, which, those are all the like Black Flag and Descendants dudes.
Right.
And so that was a milestone for us, just being able to work with them. But we knew we had to go in another direction and figure out what we wanted to do. And I think that our management at the time, like reached out to John Feldmann just to see if he'd be interested. And he was like, fuck yes. I not only do I want to do it, I'll work with whatever budget you have.
Oh, rad.
Yeah. Because at that, a big budget for us was a very, very small budget for John.
Sure.
And so the fact that John was so willing, like, whatever, I don't even care about what the money is, I get this band in here. And the fact that he was so gung-ho, we were like, this is awesome.
That is so cool. Yeah. Because he obviously was a fan, or he wouldn't have done what he did.
I think so as well. And I think he was just super interested to see what he can, because I think he's the kind of guy who's like, oh, give me a challenge. You know what I mean? Like, I've never worked with a band like this, so give me a challenge and let's see what we can do.
I love it.
It's same. And at first it was tough. The first week with John, we were like, I don't know if this is going to work.
Was it intimidating to work with him, or
it wasn't intimidating? His work style was just so like, we were like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Like, he just didn't make any sense to us at all. And John really felt that. And so one day we come into the studio and John's like, all right, everyone go home. Me and Jesse are going to go grab some food. And we're like, okay, this is weird. And so he took me out to a lunch or a breakfast or for whatever it was. And he goes, look, I know that you guys are not vibing right now. but this is what I'm asking. Give me 1 week of whatever I say goes. Just 1 week. And if you still don't like it at the end, I'll refund you your money. You can go somewhere else. You can do whatever you want. But don't fight me. Like, just like, he's basically just trying to tell us, like, this studio is a place to be creative and try new things and step outside of your comfort zone and try to experiment. And because I think that he knew, because we were more of this hardcore type of band, that we felt like there's only so much we can do.
Right. You were kind of limited to, like, we need to stay in this lane of what we're doing.
And that was our mindset. But John was like, you need to crush that. And if I tell you I want you to sing opera over this part, just try it. Just try it. We'll delete it. It'll go away. Right. I just need you guys to be open to trying things. And I was like, and I really respected that conversation where he was just basically like, yo, knock this fucking shit off. We're here to make a record. I'm going to fucking shove you and jab you and push you. Let's go. Like, we're here to work. Let's work. And it ended up, he was right, you know, and he really, like, I really give him a lot of credit for really opening me up as an artist personally, not just with Stick to Your Guns, but with Tradewind and with all of the other projects I do. I'm in 4 musical projects. And I really can say, from that brunch that we had, or lunch or breakfast, whatever it was, to now, that was a huge turning point for me, because I tried things I never would have tried. You know, because, like, let's say for a song like Nobody, in the verses of that song, it's a hard, like, the guitars are hard, and I was screaming over them. And he stopped and he was like, what would it sound like if you just sang over that? And I'm like, I wouldn't know a melody. He goes, doesn't matter. I'm just going to push record and you're going to try. Just try it. Just the first thing that comes out, just try it. And the first thing that comes out is the thing that we used. And so I sang, I did something that I never would have, I couldn't even register what he was asking me to do. I couldn't even, you know what I mean? It was like, you need a screwdriver to screw that in? Okay, well, let's try using a baseball bat. Like, that's, you know what I mean? That's to me, or let's try using an apple. Like, that's what he was asking me to do. I was like, this doesn't make any sense at all.
Right.
But for some fucked up reason, it worked. And Nobody to this day is our biggest song. So say what you want about John. I love the guy. He was an intense individual. He was an energy that my energy really met with, because he's the kind of guy who's like, oh, you know, he's just like, so it's like, dude, what's up with this guy? Like, he's got ADHD times 1,000.
Right.
And that was an energy I resonated with. That's something I understood. Like, this guy couldn't sit still. Like, he just wanted to try everything. He wanted to, you know, so it was a crazy experience. And I wouldn't change a single thing about it.
That's amazing. And around that time, when did you start Tradewind? Because the first Tradewind record came out in 2016. So that was right around the time, or a little bit later, or?
So so the first EP we did was, I think, 2014. Maybe?
Oh, okay. You had an EP out prior. I'm missing. Okay.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So, okay. So yeah, that's a little bit, I'll try not, I can talk and talk and talk. So I'll try to keep this concise. I was a band that we toured with a lot. Was
Go ahead and talk and talk and talk.
A band that we used to tour with a lot was this band Straight from the Path, and they had become really close friends of ours. And me and Tom specifically, we connected. Tom's the guitar player of Straight from the Path, and that's the guy who lives in Nashville, who I do the record label with and everything. So we had really built our own kind of special friendship. And, you know, I had become aware of his other musical tastes, and he had become aware of my other musical tastes. And so one day I was like, yo, let's start a band that's not like this, you know, let's do something else. And he was like, awesome, sounds good. And so that's how Tradewind was born. And we emailed these ideas back and forth to each other. And then finally he's like, I got this studio in New Jersey that I go to a lot and that I'm really good friends with, which is Will Putney's studio at the time, which I think was still the Machine shop. I think Machine was still working there, but actually I know he was. But anyway, we went in there and we recorded this, I don't know, I think it's 4 or 5 songs, whatever it is, in like in like 4 days. And then that kind of was how Tradewind began. And I had this label at the time that I was only running by myself. I had started Other People Records completely by myself. And Tom was like, this record label's cool. We should put this record out on it. And I was like, yeah, and you should join the record label because it's too much to do on my own.
Okay.
I need so much help. And so he agreed to join the label, and we put the Tradewind EP out, and that's kind of really what helped both the label and Tradewind. It was kind of like a symbiotic relationship that both helped each other. And yeah, when we first released that first song, I think it got a lot of praise, because I think a lot of people were very much, the first song we released was a song called Fixed Blade. And that was the first time Tom and I were showcasing to this fan base that we had that we could do something else. And I think a lot of people were really surprised by the quality of music that we had put out. It almost seemed like, wait, how are they able to do this? But a lot of people didn't realize, like, this was music that we're very passionate about.
We're talented. Right.
This also, you know, I was writing guitars as well. And I think this also showcased the fact that, like, I could sing and play guitar. And a lot of people at Stick to Your Guns had no idea of that. They didn't know that I wrote. Exactly. They didn't know that I've been writing Stick to Your Guns music from the demo. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, because I don't really showcase that side. And so Tradewind was the first time I showcased, like, yeah, I could play guitar also. So yeah, that was a kind of a cool moment.
And when you guys started that band, did you like do tours on that album? Like, or has it always just kind of been?
I wouldn't say tours. We did a West Coast run and an East Coast run, and both were actually very successful. Like 80 to 100 people, and people were really there to come and check it out. Like they were there to see what we were doing. And I love that. And, you know, people bought our record, and, you know, we built a really cool fan base. And then we put out the first LP. That one I think was on Equal Vision.
Was there a reason why you went to Equal Vision instead of keeping it with your label?
The EP really kind of made a name for us. And so the fact that Equal Vision came in, we thought, you know, to Tom and I, we're like, oh, that's a step up. Like, we're just a small little label working with these small bands, like trying to help them. Like we joke and call ourselves a stepping stone label. Like, we're the label who wants to go and do the fun part. Cause the fun part to us is finding the band that's really good that no one's heard of, and trying to, like break them, so to speak.
Get them off the ground. Yeah,
exactly. And then they can go on to do bigger and better things. Like, that's our whole business model. We're not in this to become Capitol Records. Like, we just want to like work with artists that we think are really cool. So yeah. So same thing with Tradewind. Like, we went like, oh, cool. Tradewind did exactly, or the Other People Records did for Tradewind exactly what we wanted it to. We got ourselves off the ground with this EP, and now we're going to an actual label with infrastructure. And not to shit on Equal Vision, like, they have an amazing history, and they've put out some of my favorite records, but, you know, it just wasn't, the relationship wasn't working out. I don't think that we were a priority. And I understand, like, labels only have so much staff and so many bands. So after that, we kind of got out of that deal, and then we went with back to Other People Records, where we could have kind of control on what we were doing.
And that's when you put out Certain Freedoms was on Other People Records again.
Yeah, so Certain Freedoms on Other People Records, and then also we have a European label called End Hits that did both the You Make Everything Disappear, which was the
first
Equal
record.
Vision release. Yeah, and then they did Certain Freedoms for us as well. And now this next record, The Day We Got What We Deserved, is the first one that Other People Records is handling worldwide.
Oh, and that's huge for you guys then.
Yeah.
Is this the first record of any band that you guys have done worldwide?
No, we normally do every band worldwide.
Okay.
But End Hits is ran by this guy named Oisa, who's like, he's a German guy who's like very good friend of mine. He also does stuff. He does Stick to Your Guns as well out in Europe. So he's got a really good infrastructure out there. But we just felt like with Tradewind, like, Oisa is literally one guy. Like, he's got some people, but like Tradewind, he's got so much other shit going on right now that we're just like, we're not going to bother him with this Tradewind release, and we'll just handle it. Okay. So yeah, that's
did you guys was it similar on that first or on the second record and the first like full record and the second record as far as touring? Did you guys do anything big?
Yeah, we went to Europe and did a lot of touring over there, like actual like 3-week tours and things like that. Which I would go and do a Stick to Your Guns tour, and then literally the next day start a Tradewind tour. So
I was going to ask you, was it hard to juggle that? I'm sure.
My God, by the end of a Tradewind tour, I was like, fuck music forever. Give me a Target application, and I'm just going to go and work Target and stock shelves because I'm done with this shit. Because Stick to Your Guns goes and does 5-6 week tours in Europe, and then I'm going right into a 3-week Tradewind tour. I'm just like, oh my gosh, get me
never off the road.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so you guys signed with Stick to Your Guns. You guys left and went to Pure Noise on that True View record, right?
Yes, correct. And that was yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to ask, did they approach you? Like, what was the reasoning behind jumping to them?
Our relationship with Sumerian had kind of soured. I mean, I think Ash is a really smart guy. And he has his own vision, and he is unwavering on that vision. And when two people like that collide, myself and him, things can get like ground and poundy, you know what I mean? Like, it can be tough. And that's not to say if I ran into Ash today, there'd be any bad blood. If anything, we'd probably hug each other and be like, this is amazing. Great to see you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Sometimes it just is what it is. Like I work so much in the music industry, and I have my own label, and I was managing bands for a while. Like sometimes you have to fucking scream at people who you really respect. You know what I mean? Like,
of course.
Sometimes I get on the fucking phone. I'm like, you motherfucker, fuck you. And then the next day I'm like, hey, what's your address? I'm going to send you a birthday present. You know what I mean? It's just like, that's kind of just the nature of it. And same with me. People call me like, how dare you, you stupid son of a bitch. Like, you know, I get screamed at a lot, and it's just, it's what has to happen. But Pure Noise reached out to us, and it just seemed like such a logical thing because they have
similar artists in a certain sense, right?
Right, exactly. And they just kind of seemed to us at the time to have their fingers on the pulse and knew what they were doing. Like, you always want to go with those young labels who are attracting young crowds, because at the end of the day, this kind of music that Stick to Your Guns plays, at least, I would make the argument not for Tradewind. I think Tradewind has more of like an age ceiling, but with Stick to Your Guns, that kind of music is a young man's game, you know? And I think it's important to not necessarily pander to young people, but to kind of show them like, yeah, like, because, you know, hardcore comes from, and metalcore comes from young kids basically going like, you know what? We don't need anyone else. We'll create our own thing that's ran by us, for us specifically.
Sure.
You know, and we don't need these like money hungry, like fame hungry, power hungry, like adults coming in here trying to tell us, hey, you need to do it like this, you need to do it like that. For us, all we need is a VFW hall with one outlet, and we're going to plug into it and turn our shit up to 10, and, you know, everyone else can go fuck themselves. So that, you know, it's a young man's game in that sense.
Totally.
And you want to make sure that you're still revolving around those people. Cause you know, I think that, you know, generationally it's like, okay, who are the new troops? Who are the new troops of young people, and what do they believe, and what do they want to see, and what are their dreams and aspirations, not only for themselves, but for the world. And, I resonate with young people because I have a lot of energy, and I'm still that way. You know, someday I might pick up a paintbrush and be like, I want to try painting. And I'm like, you know, that's not for me. And, you know, like I get what it's like to have that, like, to want to try everything, and to that young, youthful energy. I love that. And I don't think I'll ever stop loving it, at least until my knees and back permit me to.
They just totally give out on you. That's amazing.
So yeah, so in a long way, that's my long way of saying Pure Noise seemed to be the place for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And dude, I love the new song you guys put out with Tradewinds. Bishop.
Thank you. Thank you.
So good. I really love it.
And that's another thing about
piece. Like, there's
exactly
beautiful.
And I'm so sorry to cut you off, but like,
no.
That's another thing is Tradewinds is a different band from record to record to record to record. And so, and that to me is like the two biggest differences between a band like Tradewind and a band like Stick to Your Guns. Because like I said before, although John did help us push through that ceiling that we felt we had, there still is a ceiling, right? Like we can't just have like a fucking oboe and the oboe solo in the middle of a fucking Stick to Your Guns song. You're just not gonna happen. And nor is that something we want. But Tradewind, if we want, you know, Randy, the guy who's the producer of Tradewind, but he's also the bass player. And he's a guy the guy is the most talented person I know. I would borderline call him a prodigy. But he's the kind of guy who's going to go out and go like, oh, I really love the way the wind is blowing through the leaves right now. So I'm going to go record that for an hour and a half. And he's just going to go stand outside like this, like, and we're just like, is this guy an idiot? And then he puts it in the song and he does something to it. And I'm just like, now all of a sudden this wind blowing through the leaves is a song. And I don't know how he did it, but it is. And so that's what I really love about Tradewind. It's the fact that every time we go into a new record, it's like start from scratch, break down doesn't matter what we did in the past. You know what I mean? If I want to go like hit the concrete with a hammer and sing over it, that's what we're going to do. And so I get to use a completely different part of my brain for Tradewind than 6 Year Guns. And that's really helpful for a person like me because I'm constantly on 10. So I need a lot
different outlets.
Exactly.
I love that. Well, I want to talk to you real quick about, you said you guys were on tour with Stick to Your Guns when COVID hit. Like where were you guys? Like, tell me about that a little bit. Like what happened to you?
So I'll tell you this. So Stick to Your Guns wasn't actually on tour when COVID hit. That was at the end of 2019. And then we came home and then we did Christmas and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I was actually on tour with my solo project, which is called Wish You Were Here. Literally I was in the middle of a tour and we were at the Chicago date. And that's when we got the news. It's done. So do you know Audio Tree?
Yes, I do.
So I had done an Audio Tree session during the day.
Okay. You did one with Tradewinds too, right?
Yeah. Tradewind did one as well. Yeah. So I did an Audio Tree session with Wish You Were Here, and I'm in the middle of the interview. We're literally getting the news like, this is done. Like I didn't even know I was going to play the show that night. Like we were getting the news. You can see in real time, like we're shutting the shit down.
People are shutting stuff down.
So I actually went and played the show, and we had something like 110 pre-sale, and maybe 20 people actually ended up showing up.
I was going to ask you if you saw that, saw that happen with people not like sellouts and not people showing.
Right. And so we had like I was like, oh, Chicago's going to be one of the best shows. Like, cause they were really, really small shows, intimate shows. Cause it's, me and acoustic guitar with a few other guys, really, really mellow, even more mellow than Tradewind kind of music. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like 20 people came out and it was just kind of like, it was a little awkward, but I understood and everyone else understood. And I was just like, hey, we're going to play through the show. And then we're just we're literally driving from California straight back to LA. From Chicago straight back to LA. Yeah. And everyone at the show was kind of like, all right, well, cheers, and then we did the show. And then it was like, thanks so much. People bought a bunch of merch and then everyone went home. And that was the last show I played.
Oh my gosh. Was it kind of like an emotional moment? Like, did people know like this is probably going to be the last show I'm going to see, or
it wasn't for me, and two reasons. I didn't know how serious it was going to be.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Uh-huh. I was like, oh, okay, we're probably just shutting some stuff down for a little bit to figure out what the hell's going on. Uh-huh. So I didn't have much stake in that.
Okay.
I didn't really realize how much life was about to change.
Right.
All I had just done a tour right before that. So it was again that situation where I was like, I get to go home right now.
Yes. Yeah, like, right.
You know what I mean?
Gonna have some downtime.
Exactly. I had 2 more weeks of that tour I was on to do. And then I was going to go home for 2 weeks. And then I was getting ready to leave on another 5-week tour. Oh, so wow. I had heard that the 5-week tour got canceled and the tour I was on was getting canceled. I was like, thank you. Thank you, God. I just get to go home and lay in bed for months. Sure. You know what I mean? Like, which is something I had never done before.
You guys play so much and like you have so many things. Like, I can't imagine how, like, you probably are never home.
Never. And so there was definitely a learning curve at the beginning because I had been so trained to constantly be on the road. Every time I was home, the second I hit the 3-week mark, I was like, okay, I gotta go.
Antsy.
But I pushed past that. And now I'm kind of like, I've built this really awesome routine here at home where I'm almost like, I don't know if you're going to be able to get me back on the road. I mean, I definitely
want to take some real convincing to get me out of here.
Exactly. And I think everyone in the band, because everyone in the band now owns a home except for myself. So all the other members of Stick to Your Guns are homeowners. Chris has a daughter. Like, I think everyone is now in the same boat of being like, we still want to tour, but we're going to pull it way back.
Got it.
Just because, we are getting older and I think the youngest person in the band now is 30 when or maybe George is maybe 29. So it's kind of crazy to think.
You guys are all teenagers when it all started.
I know, and now we're old ass men. But I mean, I always say I'm not going to consider anyone old until they hit 65. Is when that's when I can start going like, okay, fine, now you're old. But like, but when I hear 20 nothings go like, oh, I'm getting so old. It's like,
it's like no.
Don't waste your time saying that. Be young and be proud to be young.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because and same with me though. It's like, although I have this youthful energy, I love getting older. I don't know what it is, but every year that I'm in, I like more than the year before. So I'm enjoying getting older.
That's a great attitude to have.
I'm sure I'm going to hit that point where I'm like, okay, let's slow it down a little bit. But
right.
As of right now, I'm 33, turning 34 this year, and I'm excited. I can't wait because to me, I'm not letting that dictate any decisions or whether it be financial or creative or whatever it is. I'm not letting it. It's whatever. It's just an age. It's just
I love that attitude. Okay, well, so now you're at home, and is that when you start writing? What's going to be this new record for Tradeview or Tradewind? Sorry.
Yeah. No, all good. That's all good. I'm a hard one to keep track of. I put out too much stuff. So this Tradewind record drops on, what day is it even? It's May 12th or May 17th. Jesus. So May 21st. So in a few days here, the Tradewind record, the full record comes out.
Friday. Was that Friday?
Yeah, exactly. Stick to Your Guns has been sitting on a record completely finished. We've been sitting on one for about a year now, but that's going to be coming out. Have no idea. My musical project Wish You Were Here is recording, so that's okay. I'm in the middle of doing songs with that, and then I even play in another band called Ways Away. That's just like my band that I band practice with. Everyone's actually from LA, so we can get together and play.
Okay.
And that band is in the middle of recording a record as well.
Wow, dude.
So I'm sending out records from bands on my label always, and
amazing.
I'm in my office right now, which is in the back of a bookstore that I'm about to open up. So,
wow,
yeah,
dude,
I know.
I'm busy, man. Oh my gosh.
Like I said, I can't slow down. I got to be doing something constantly.
Sure.
And my girlfriend is just like, dude, slow it down. But she's also a high energy, rambunctious type of person, incredibly low maintenance. If anything, I'm high maintenance. And so, and we're also fostering 2 puppies right now.
Oh my gosh.
We have our own dog, our own cat, and a bird, and then we're fostering 2 puppies on top of it, as well as doing all those other. So like I said, I love waking up early. I like going to bed late. I like doing all this stuff. We also run a mutual aid group in Venice where we feed people, shelter, and we shelter people and clothe people. Like we love being involved in our community. We love doing things, right? We're alive. We're like, let's do, you know what I mean? But that's not to say I also love binge watching Netflix shows. So,
but where do you have time to binge watch Netflix shows? The real question.
I always, when I'm packing orders, I'll put a show on because that keeps me distracted. Or at home, we will do an hour or 2 of TV before we go to bed or whatever. So
got it. Okay,
yeah, we find time.
So did you record the whole record over the course of the last year or so, or?
Yeah.
Okay. What was that like during COVID? Like, is it?
You're talking about the Tradewind record. Yeah. So it was really strange. I had never done a record like this, which is what got me excited about it. So our drummer, Andrew, who we call Mac, his last name's McEnaney. So Andrew McEnaney, who he played in like a metal band called Strictures, and shit. But he's like he also plays for a lot of really big pop artists and goes on tour with a lot of pop artists. He's an incredible drummer, like insane. So he sent a Dropbox folder of about 60 different drum beats. That's it. It was just drums, different beats, different variations, different rudiments or whatever the fuck they call them. And yeah, exactly. I'm a real musical person. But so he sent over this folder to Randy, who's the guy, also the prodigy, insanely talented person. And Randy started putting, just like going like, all right, listening to a beat, and started putting piano over it or some guitar or whatever it was. And the two of them created this like very DJ Shadow-ish type of record that was just like ambient music. And then I think somewhere along their process, I don't think that they even had the intention of it being a Tradewind record, but somewhere along their process, they were like, damn, this might be a cool Tradewind record. And so they sent it over to me and Tom, and I was like, I kind of, because of how busy I am, I was kind of like, I'm not doing this. I don't have time. You know what I mean? And then I basically, the deal I made with them, and this was before even hearing any of the songs, the deal I made with them was like, I'll do it, but you guys are completely at the mercy of my schedule. So if you're down to wait what could be upwards of months, then I'm on board. But the only reason I'm saying this is not to be a dick. It's just to be realistic and let you guys know what I got
a lot going on. You got a lot on your plate. Sure.
But then once they sent the music, I was like, oh shit. Because it was so good that I was like, oh man, okay, I'll do this.
Okay.
Still, it took a long time, way longer than they had wanted, but we eventually got it done, and and that's what we have out right now. So but it was all during quarantine, and it was an interesting process, because I'd never done a record where it was like the drummer is the one who starts it.
Yeah, you know, he's file sharing kind of
exactly thing. I mean, I've done file sharing, but not where it's like we're gonna start with drum beats and then we're gonna put music. Normally it's one of the guitar players, whether it be me or someone else, going, I have this song.
Okay.
And then we put drums to that, and then we put other production to it and all that kind of stuff. But for the drummer to start going like, I'm just going to do a bunch of drum beats. And then Randy, who, you know, so I'm probably going to give something away right now, but it doesn't really matter. So it can be exclusive content for your podcast.
I love it.
You know, there's that game Fortnite.
Yeah.
So I don't play video games. Once like anything past Super Nintendo, I don't have the dexterity in my hands to like.
Me either, but I have a 13-year-old who loves it, and my 5-year-old plays Fortnite. Like he will win. Like he's 5. We're gonna get him a YouTube channel because he will win like constantly. He'll win like 4 or 5 in a row, and I'm like, oh my god, how does a 5-year-old beat like? People have been doing this all day. Anyway,
no, exactly. No, it's okay. It's okay. That makes what I'm about to tell you even better. So yeah, anything past Super Nintendo, A, B, up, down, I can't do.
Right.
But so Randy took the theme song when like you're about to like play, there's like the theme song that's Fortnite, there's this loop of a song.
Yeah.
And he pitched it down really, really low, and then slowed it down a lot to make it almost like you can't even tell what the hell it is. And then put one of Mac's beats to it. And that's literally the song that we use to open up the record.
Awesome.
And so it's like, and then,
that's rad.
He does that and then puts his own piano stuff over it. And he does shit like that all the time, where it's like, I'll be listening to a song and I'll be like, what is that really low underneath everything? He goes, oh, that's a Fleetwood Mac song that I slowed down and then reversed. And then I cut it up and chopped it up in a weird way. And that's that, like, I'm just like, dude, you're out of your mind.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So he does really cool stuff like that. And he's him and Mac, let me go on the record right now and saying they are Tradewind. You know what I mean? Like I feel blessed that they let me sing on their songs. You know what I mean? Like I don't feel like the singer. Every song I sing on a Tradewind record, I'm like, I'm almost like featuring on their songs. You know what I mean? So they're
well, it's almost like you're the true singer to the band. Like they present. No, I mean they present you the music and everything done, and then you get to write the lyrics and add a melody to it.
I feel very humbled by them that they feel I'm talented enough to because they're truly like musical people. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm a guy who can sometimes sing and I can sometimes play guitar, but I really wouldn't. Maybe I'm being overly humble. Like I like to sing. I'll go ahead and say I'm a singer. I'm a singer for sure.
You're right.
I'm
a
not a
professional singer. That's you put out numerous records. Like
right.
Let's be real.
but I'm not a guitar player. I'm someone who can play the guitar. And I'm not a piano player. I'm someone who can sit down at a piano and play some stuff. I am a singer. I will say that. I am a singer, but like I can pick up a bass, or I can pick up or I can sit down at a piano, or I can pick up a guitar, and I can get through it. But I'm not like these people who are like musical, you know what I mean?
Right.
Andy is the kind of guy who's like sitting down at a Wurlitzer and like you think you're sitting in like some crazy jazz club.
Right. He's like a Berkeley School of Music type guy.
He literally is a Berkeley guy.
Okay. So, there you go.
So he that's who we're dealing with. And the fact that he thinks that I can even compete in the same arena as him makes me feel good. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I love the song. Like I said, I mean, I love all the Tradewind stuff I went through, and I didn't realize that you had this project, to be honest. Like I knew Stick to Your Guns, and I love those records. And then when I saw that you were going to do this interview, I was like, oh, like rad. I love his other stuff. Let's check it out. And it was like so different. And I'm like, this is so cool.
And that's what excites me.
I love that.
I think a lot of people are very unaware that I have all these other projects going on, and that's totally okay because I can barely keep track of them. So, but it is exciting when I meet someone such as yourself, or maybe anyone who may watch this or listen to this, and they become aware that I have these other outlets and I'm capable of doing other things. Like I like that. That's exciting for me. So.
Yeah, dude, I think it's so
I
good.
appreciate you, my friend.
No, man, I appreciate you. And thank you so much for taking so much time to chat with me and hang out. I've had such a great time. I really appreciate it.
Of course. And you're Adam, right?
Yeah, I'm Adam.
Okay, great. Well, Adam, it was great to meet you. I don't know if we're wrapping up, but it was a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah.
And I will say this, you're a wonderful interviewer, and I appreciate you asking thoughtful questions and not things just like, so what's the band name mean, or give me a crazy tour story or whatever it is. Like you're an engaging interviewer, and I appreciate that. So.
I appreciate you saying that, because that's the reason why I started this podcast, to be 100% honest. And other than the fact that I am a nerd for like people's where they came from, and like I just love that, and I love the stories, because I played guitar poorly as a kid and was in like terrible bands, and just always was like, how did that guy get, like, how did they do that, like, and that fascinates me. And like I think like I want to be this is a platform for aspiring musicians that want to learn how to do it. Definitely. And I came from 16 years of radio, terrestrial radio, being on the air and on alternative stations, and hearing those interviews, or like, dude, being from San Diego, like, what's your favorite burrito? It's like, does anyone really care? Like, really? Like, what are you going to start going to that Mexican restaurant because, you know, Jesse likes it? Like, I mean, cool, but let's be real. Like, I don't know. I just feel like I came from that morning, like just listening to those morning zoo type interviews, and I'm like, smack me.
I agree. And, you know, I think that podcasting has really opened that up again. Like there's still bad interviewers, but there are people who genuinely get down to the stuff that, and they know how to ask a question and articulate a question to get an answer for something that people genuinely want to know. And I will say you're one of those people. So I appreciate it.
That means a lot to me, man. Like, so much. And I will hit you with one more question before I let you go.
Go ahead.
If you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Yeah, absolutely. And this used to be a question I wasn't able to answer, but I'm in my wise old age. Really, the music industry is changing. So anytime someone tries to give you a formula on how to quote unquote make it, they're bullshitting you. That might not be their intention to bullshit you or trick you, but that's what it is. There is no intent. There's no formula. Like I've seen people become successful throughout my entire artistic career in a whole multitude of ways. There's no one way that works. And I think that what a lot of artists need to stop doing is using the exception to the rule as the rule. You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, you know, a lot, I get hit with artists who go like, I really want to score like films. Like I want to do film scoring. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, Explosions in the Sky did it. It's like, well, that's an exception. You know what I mean? Like the Explosions in the Sky, they had to work their fucking ass off being in a band before they were, and touring their asses off and doing all these things before someone like whoever decided to have them score that movie Friday Night Lights, before they were approached to do something like that. I think like anything, doing the work is the most important thing. And waking up every day and putting in your hours of playing your songs and honing your craft and figuring out what it is you want to do. And I always say this to people is never compromise what you're doing or who you are, but be willing to compromise. And a lot of people can't differentiate what those two things mean. And don't think that basically what it means is this: don't think you're so fucking special that like you're above doing something because it might have a weird look or whatever. Like, don't compromise who you are. Like, if I get asked to come on some, weird show that on fucking some weird network that I might not agree with what it is that they're doing, I might go on it, but I'm not going to compromise who I am. I'm going to say I'm going to say exactly what I want to say. And I'm going to sing the songs I want to sing, and I want to do the things I want to do. But like, I think that you need to be willing to take certain opportunities that are afforded to you, at least until you can completely create your own lane that you yourself can 100% control. And that's where I genuinely feel that's where I'm at now, is I truly don't have to answer to anyone. Now, that doesn't mean I have managers I respect and booking agents I respect and other artists I respect that I work with. So I'm not just completely like, fuck all you, I'm doing it my way. It's more so like, okay, this is a community. Let's all talk and figure out what's the best for everybody. So yeah, that would be my main advice, but mostly just don't worry about making it here or making it there or whatever. If you really want to do it, you'll do it. And I believe that. So yeah.